Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Top Agent Nation Commercial Wednesday. Really excited to be back from traveling, and it's great just catching up with Ash of other things that he does, but it's all networking and meeting people. So I know I met his friends when I was at an SIOR conference, and it was with Second Century Ventures, NAR Reach, and we were just talking, and we just really aligned, but through that relationship connection, this is hot, this is big. You know, I was involved when there was the billboards and there was the digital billboards and people were putting those together. Then those that know, they were putting wireless, selling wireless master leases on the same channels to actually help you buy property. This is the next hot one, EV chargers. Who's going to say that, okay, I don't think fossil fuel is going to go away overnight, but to put EV stations in apartment buildings, retail, what does this look like? And how did this all evolve? And, you know, you're going to learn from two experts that have been in this field, learned it, studied it, and now you got cutting edge by being on Top Agent Nation Commercial Wednesdays to find out. So Ash, thank you. And Marcel, thank you for being on. Love for you to share your background and story. Very impressive. And then how did you get into this EV charging space? So Ash, I'll let you start.
Yeah, no, thank you for the kind invite. That's perfect. The kind intro. Apologies. Yeah, maybe we can do a little background about Marcel and I and how we kind of reconnected and started building this last year. So I started my career with McKinsey, spent a couple of years there working in the wonderful world of chemicals and petroleum and pesticides, the stuff I dreamt about as a child, obviously, before moving into Microsoft for a couple of years and then pivoting into the prop tech and startup world about 6 years ago. So I helped scale a short-term rental operator in Latin America. So scaled it from about 20 apartments to 1,500 apartments across Mexico and Brazil. And that's when I got really, really hands-on into prop tech and sort of like commercial real estate in general. I then took that same business model and moved it to Dubai. And so we built out a team, raised some money. And the idea was to become the premier short-term rental operator for the Middle East, Southeast Asia, and India as well. And so we scaled it to about 500 properties in Dubai, some in Riyadh, some in Bangalore, before I had to decide to move back to North America. I'm originally from Toronto. And then Marcel and I got reconnected and started working on Sky & Co. last year. Marcel, do you want to give a little intro?
Yeah, happy to. Yeah, James, thanks for the opportunity to present. Marcel, I have a background also in management consulting and fintech. So spent a little more than 6 or 7 years, I think, with McKinsey. Started out in Europe, so I'm originally German, and then moved to the US. Spent a lot of time in the energy practice, so was deeply entrenched with working with utilities, public and social sector clients, you name it, kind of the whole gambit of the energy space. And then went also into startups and was building the US office of a late stage European fintech company called Raisin. Reconnected with Ash afterwards, and we started building this concept, and it's been going very well. So excited to hear more about it.
Well, this is really exciting for those that don't know McKinsey. That's the high level of the consulting. So these people here, you know, got the corporate life, but entrepreneurial life, serial entrepreneurs here. So really excited to, you know, really learn more. How did you enter this as you were looking, obviously, in the fuel, probably renewables and everything else to kind of guide your nature of what, you know, you could do for a business plan to come into EV chargers?
Yep, no, absolutely. So the underlying thesis that we have is that, and I think you've probably seen this in headlines everywhere, the US grid is just getting crunched, right? Like every single day, every single year, there's more and more industries that are looking to extract from the grid, whether it's like AI, heavy industry, EV chargers, e-mobility, you name it. There's about 30 or so different industries that are growing every day that are looking to deploy distributed energy. They're looking to deploy the infrastructure in pockets of energy all across the country. And on the supply side, the transmission lines or the grid is just not catching up. And so this value of energy and these pockets of energy is becoming more and more valuable for these industries that require distributed energy. And so what we do in essence is basically help commercial owners monetize their spare capacity. And what I mean by that is that if you have, let's say you own a McDonald's, right? I'm just making these numbers up. you have a McDonald's that's using at its peak 100 kilowatts an hour. The lines underneath it, the transmission lines underneath it, or the substation close to it, can support 300 kilowatts. You can actually sell that 200 kilowatts to folks that need it, like EV chargers, batteries, edge data centers. And so what we're trying to do is almost in a crude sense become this Airbnb for commercial power, in that we work with commercial owners. They give us a list of their portfolio, the addresses. All we need is their addresses. We basically do an inside-out analysis of like, how much spare capacity does this site actually have? We can either send someone on site, or we can take a couple of photos of the panel, the transformer, the meter, do an outside-in analysis of the grid using grid maps to understand like, okay, this space has this much capacity. And now we're starting off with EV charging as our wedge, but eventually we'll move into other load cases as well. Then we look at EV charging, or like, does it make sense to put EV chargers here? Is this like in a rural area where like we won't get any charging? Is this in the middle of Times Square? This is amazing. So we get an understanding of like the ROI and whether we should actually put EV chargers here. And we take that lead and basically shop it around, do a virtual RFP process to all the 60 or so different EV charging developers in the US and get the highest bid for the property. And so the screening is completely free. All we need is the address. And basically, we get paid only when someone, as a couple of cents, and sometimes when anyone charges their EV car. So our incentives are completely aligned as well. And I can get through our process as well when I share a deck, but that's in essence what we do. We basically talk to owners, get their addresses, do our outside analysis, shop it around to developers, get bids on their properties, and then based on the kind of business model the owner is looking for, whether it's a lease, a revenue share, whether the owner wants to own and operate it, we can provide financing. We basically tailor-made the solution for the owner.
Marcel, anything to add? Because I know from the US, Canada, let's say global, because we've been all around the world, how is this kind of the rollout, adoption, usage, right? With everything, especially you being up in Canada, are you doing all of North America or still just domestic into the US?
Yeah, so we're actually based in Brooklyn, New York, and we cater all over the US. I would say, our focus areas right now are New York, California, and Michigan. But the problem is not just limited to those states, right? It's just that's where we're seeing the most initial traction. And we work with local utilities also to build relationships, because those relationships are really important as it comes to how do we install these chargers? How do we get permits and so on and so on? So that's also one area of expertise that we're building up. And really, but the model itself is universal about like across the United States.
Perfect. So I guess, Ash, maybe you could kind of show a deck and we can go deeper into it once you explain it for people. Because I think most of us will have an EV car and we just charge it at home. So maybe if you share a deck, I think it would really
Absolutely.
help a lot of people understand a lot more.
For sure. So I mentioned, we talked about our background, and in general, like I mentioned, we increase commercial properties NOI by hosting EV charging infrastructure and other fast-growing energy dependent use cases. So like I mentioned, we're seeing EV charging as like our initial wedge, but it's micro mobility, battery storage, EV fleet operators as well. All these folks are looking for areas to deploy their infrastructure, right? At the same time, commercial owners are always looking for ways to increase NOI and generate ancillary revenue. And so what we do is pretty simple. So one is we analyze a property. All we need is the address, right? So we do an inside analysis using like 60 or so different indicators to answer two questions. One, should we put EV chargers here? And two, could we put EV chargers here? Then post that, we identify the right developer based on the business model the owner is looking for. There's like 60 or so different operators in the space, all offering different variations of business models. Some offer financing, some offer a pure rev share, some offer a lease rate. It really depends on the owner. We can provide you with whatever the owner wants. We do this, we maximize the options and do competitive bidding. And then basically it's hands off. We can get you a contract to the owner's inbox within a week. Our partners do the installed equipment, they do the permitting, they'll basically optimize and maintain the charger. So there's literally nothing for the owner to do besides sit back and just get this ancillary revenue. Plus, it's a good amenity for any kind of walk-ins. And so, I mean, I won't get too much into details, but here are just a flavor of the kinds of options that exist is complete own and operate, where we can provide financing. The owner owns the hardware, retains 100% of the revenue, but they obviously bear the ongoing utilization risk, all the way down into like charging as a service, which is basically a pure rev share option, where there's no capex, no monthly fees. The provider provides a share of revenue, and you don't have to worry about utilization. You're just going to get some percentage of money in your inbox every month. So I mean, we built out a proprietary algorithm and an ROI calculator where like all we need is your address, and you can basically pump out across these 3 or 4 scenarios. What could the 10-year cash flow look like? What's your valuation uplift, right? In a lot of cases, you multiply this by the cap rate and can really increase the resale value of your property as well. And then 3, I mean, for us, it's like zero cost, right? You just give us the addresses, no obligation. We'll just give you a contract. If you want to go with it, you don't have to. I mean, it's completely up to you. It's a one-stop solution. So I mean, truth be told, maybe it's bad to say for a business model, but owners don't care about EV charging, right? They care about revenue. They don't want to get in the hassle of like installing and permitting and operations. We take care of everything for you, right? So you just sit back, give us your address and your intent, and we'll take care of the rest. And 3, we're always growing like our demand partnership, right? Like there could be a world in which right now we put an EV charger, but in the future, this is just an example. We're actually working with Google down in Dallas. They're running this interesting program for commercial drones where they basically pick up groceries or a coffee and can basically drop it off on your doorstep within 30 seconds. Their issue is that their drones only go 2 miles in one direction and 2 miles back. So they're looking for places to charge and park their drones as well. Again, they need distributed energy. So that if that's something that's useful for them, that's something we can co-locate on owner sites as well. So once we have a site under control and we have EV charging, we're going to constantly looking for other demand use cases to add to the site as well. And so it's an ongoing partnership. And in general, we're basically just it's almost like a supply and demand. There's like these folks looking for distributed energy. Commercial owners don't speak in electricity. They speak in NOI, revenue, cap rate. And we're just trying to bridge the gap and that you give us your address and we'll take care of the rest.
Ash, do you have any case studies for anyone that you can show some stories or tell what you're actually looking for? Because I think a lot of people here are commercial. We do multifamily. I mean, what is the ideal, client that would say this is perfect?
So a couple of things. One is that we work across commercial. So we have partners in multifamily, we have offices, we have a lot of interest in level 3 charging, which is typically in retail, QSRs, places where the dwell time is 20 to 40 minutes. So we work the entire gamut of commercial owners. Typically, where we've seen the most traction are in places where there aren't councils to go through, right? Like in many cases, like for example, we're talking to BGO. The amount of meetings we've had to go through in order to like get to like some kind of decision takes forever. But if you go to like an auto shop, for example, or someone who owns like 3 auto shops, or woman in Ariane named Ariane in New Jersey owns 12 Popeyes. She basically just gave us her entire portfolio and said, take care of it for me. And so ideally it could be our ICP, our folks who have the decision-making ability as well. And so
Yeah.
and also like geographically, we're pretty agnostic.
Yeah. What I would underline is that right now where a lot of movement happens and also where the potential revenue stream is very attractive is DC fast charging. So think of it as your super fast charger where your car can charge in 20 to 30 minutes rather than 6 to 8 hours, which is the case with level 2 charging. Ideal locations for that are really locations where customers come, have maybe a meal, so quick service restaurants, but really spend like half an hour or so at a given location. So that's what we're quite excited about. So yeah, places like quick service restaurants, maybe dentist offices, strip malls, et cetera, where you have the amenities already, so people come already. And you can offer that as a very highly value-added service. And the projects there are pretty significant. So you're really quickly looking into mid 6-figure capex numbers, but the payoff is really interesting as well because your average price for kilowatt per kilowatt hour for DC fast charger is in the 50 to 60 cent range, whereas for level 2 charging, it's more in the 30-cent range. So the margins that you have, which in the end is the spread between the utility price that you pay, which is, let's say, like 15 cents, and those 50 cents can very quickly become very attractive for the owners. And so that's, as Ash said, so we're completely commercial property agnostic, but where we're seeing quite a bit of interest and traction and also really interesting risk return profiles is for everything that qualifies for those fast charging equipment.
Yeah, and so we started this last year. We already have about 600 plus properties in the pipeline. We've got contracts with, I think, 18 operators and OEMs. We're deploying our sites in California. So things are moving. And so, and our technology is scalable. So, I mean, if we have addresses coming in, we can pretty easily, within a day, give you guys like projections and then post that, go into contract, give you some kind of like indication of contracting with interested developers pretty shortly after as well.
And I'm sure, Ash, you and Marcel, you both kind of did a market study of what does it look like year 1, year 5, year 10, with the EV charging and the, evolution in this market. What does it look like, as we all hear about it, but what is the kind of growth potential within the market, domestically, globally, but also we all know California, maybe Illinois, certain states, right, are very proactive. I guess you could go with the states that give tax credits, right, or credits for EV cars. So with the other states, what is the growth potential that you guys see as you did kind of a market study?
Yeah, I mean, maybe to just give a couple of high-level stats, and then we can also go into details. But so today, every 10th car that is being sold in the US is an EV, and the expectation is that that number will only grow. We see that globally, really across the board. EVs are getting cheaper, batteries are getting more efficient, you have a longer reach, so it's getting to a point where very soon buying an EV is also economically the better choice, right? However, there's also still some concerns. So things like range anxiety, right, where people think about, okay, if I have to travel, for a couple of hours, will I be able to charge everywhere, and so on. And so what we're seeing is that there is a very high need to deploy more chargers. So just to put it into context, today we have 200,000 public EV chargers across the US. And the expectation is that by 2032, that number has to increase to 4 million, right? So there is a charging supply crunch, and this is where the opportunity also is, because on the other hand, there are all of these developers. 5 years ago, you might have only had the Tesla charging infrastructure, but nowadays you have close to 100 different developers that are deploying either their own hardware or they're just partnering with OEMs and deploying OEM agnostic hardware across the United States. There's automotive OEMs, for example, such as Mercedes-Benz High Power Charging that is building its own charging network. There's companies like EVgo. There's the utilities that are playing in this market. So a lot of kind of demand. But kind of bottom line is we need to go from 200,000 to 4 million chargers. So, a lot of growth across all states. There are then also these tax incentives that we hear quite a bit about, both on the federal and on the state level. The federal level, of course, right now is a little bit of a question mark, but on the state level, we see incentive programs being continued and sometimes even being ramped up. The big kind of state that everyone knows about, and where also there is already a very high penetration of EV charging, is, as you mentioned, California, but it's really not limited to that. So we're seeing incentive programs across multiple states. And even without incentive programs, given that the demand is there, these stations need to be built. And so it's becoming even more critical to build them at locations that actually make sense, right? Because, maybe a couple of years ago, there was so much free money floating around where you could just build it essentially everywhere for free. That's no longer the case. So now both developers and owners really care about, okay, if I deploy this, does it actually generate revenue? Does it economically make sense? And this is where our screening platform also comes in, right? Because we want to, for both sides of the market, and also for us, given that we only participate in the charging revenue, we need to make sure that we only build these stations where there's also the expected demand. So a couple of thoughts. that.
Yeah, I would just underline one more interesting statistic. Right now, the ratio of chargers to public chargers to EV cars is 1 to 20. What we need to get to is 1 to 8. So there's a huge delta that we're trying to cross in the next couple of years. And the power lies with the commercial owners, right? Like they're sitting on pockets of energy, and you have 60 or so developers looking to install it. So why not find a way to monetize it?
You know, this is exactly it. It just people don't know, right? That you have this program out there. And I think that's what we're doing this because I remember the billboards to the wireless. I mean, just this is the next thing. Solar for a while, everyone was trying to put solar, but now it's the efficiency, right? With the battery, with the power. And right now we get the subsidies, and the business plan does make sense because it's moving towards that to have that full grid all across. So what would it look like? Because I know there are a lot of the properties that are tied to the grid. What about kind of the off-grid and others, you know, plot of land or someplace else like a truck stop or somewhere in between? How would you guys do it if it's a little off the grid? And what type of charges and what could you do? Something a little off the beaten path, but still very necessary, let's say along the freeways or highways.
Yeah, so for some of these locations, what becomes really interesting is combining charging stations with microgrids. So yeah, with solar, for example, with larger scale batteries that can release power when needed. Those become more complex projects, but also can become very interesting if they're, for example, in highway corridors that are yeah, where there's a lot of frequency of traffic, for example. And there's also special incentive programs within highway corridors to promote the deployment of charging stations. So what we're seeing there is, yeah, like some creative solutions where, you know, we would also bring in, let's say, a microgrid developer, right, that is interested in building solar, because then suddenly that microgrid developer has an opportunity for that solar to have a guaranteed offtake, right? Because now there are these there are these charging stations that take some of that solar energy and deploy it to EV cars. So it's I'll say like a synergetic relationship there. Yeah, and there's a lot of innovation happening in that space. So intelligently combining solar and batteries, intelligently combining charging and batteries. So that's some of the next frontier where there's a lot of innovation happening right now.
And we're also working with fleet operators. This is something new, but this is slowly happening where you have either light duty or heavy duty fleet managers that are looking for places to charge their vehicles, and they don't want to put up the capex. And so what we're doing in many cases is routing them to our chargers in our commercial property owners and saying you can park here overnight. It's a win for the commercial owner, that's more revenue for us. Win for us, again, we're aligned with incentives, more revenue for us, and win for the fleet operators because they don't have to install the capex and they're taking advantage of an underutilized asset during the night. And so I mean we can do this as well for off the beaten path, for example. If there's heavy duty trucks that need to be charged in a certain area overnight, we can work with them and basically route them to that location as well.
And I know for the people listening, how could you get paid by plugging in and sending you an address?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we have a referral agreement. We have tiers, one for level 3, one for level 2. We're very, very open, and like basically as soon as we get an installer on the ground, get a level 3 charger installed, you get paid. And it's basically all you need to do is give us the address, and that's it. We'll take care of the rest. And I think in general, it's a win-win for the owner. Like our pitch in many cases has been, we'll pay you to install an EV charger. Let's give us your address, give us your intent, and we'll find someone to install and operate an EV charger. You'll basically get passive income on a monthly basis. So it seems like a no-brainer for the owner. You're just getting in front of them and convincing them that this is the future.
Yeah, because I know this group, there's a lot of brokers, there's a lot of developers, there's property management, there's capital markets people, because once they're looking at a property, knowing that they could add an extra revenue source without adding the capex. I mean, that's just, you just increase your cap rate. I mean, that's a no-brainer. And this is what we used to do with wireless and the billboards, right? I mean, this is the next thing I see. And who doesn't? Because it's going that way. You don't need as many car counts, right, for the parking spaces as you did before. So now you can actually take a look. And I always say it's a door opener because no one really has talked about this. And that's why I was really excited to share this with everyone. I'd like to open up for some questions. Nelson, you're kind of the ESG guy, you know. I know we may not say it as much, but do you have any questions on this?
Well, I know that there's a lot of technology in battery charging in which the time frame is becoming compressed. Does the same technology work for those kind of fast charging batteries, or does it require special charging?
Can you repeat that one more time, Nelson? Oh, sorry, maybe Marcel, you got it.
I'm sorry?
Oh yeah, I can take an initial step, but let me know, Nelson, if that addresses your question. So, what we are seeing, so there is this world of standalone batteries that also help with things like peak shaving, for example, right? Where if electricity costs are high, you're using the power from the battery. If they're low, you're kind of charging that battery, and that helps kind of properties save on their utility bill. What we see is now deployments of these batteries together with EV charging to also offset some of the extra energy that is being taken from the grids. So, for example, if many people come and charge, you then rather want to release some power from the battery and do that at a lower price, and you might pay for your utility at a given time of the day. So we're seeing kind of that combination being more and more deployed. But Nelson, let me know if that addresses your question.
Kind of. I was just curious, what is your standard offer to a property owner on a rev share?
Yeah, so it depends with the developer partner that we're partnering with, right? Because in the end they set those prices, but usually it's a two-stage agreement where the initial rev share is a little bit lower until the developer gets a certain share of their capex repaid, and then it unlocks a higher tier of rev share. I would say it really depends on the respective property. If it's a property in a very attractive location, then the rev share can be higher. If it's a property that is also more risky to take on for the developer, then that is usually they're trying to obviously also protect their capital. So then the rev share is slightly lower.
And what would be the typical agreement time with a property owner, like a length of lease or whatever?
Yeah, so what we're seeing typically is 5 to 10 years for these type of deployments, and then there's options to renew and so on. But yeah, like the minimum that we're seeing is 5 years.
So there's a lot of questions.
Yeah.
You
I was just
know,
gonna
you want to
address that.
answer some of those,
Appreciate it.
Ash, that's
Yeah.
coming in?
No, Dick, that's a great question. So we typically see, there's like entire gambit, right? And like the crux of this is if you're doing a pure lease model, we've seen leases at about $200 to $400 a month per parking spot. If we're going onto rev share, that really depends on utilization, expected growth rates. We can expect a couple thousands over time per charger. And that really depends honestly on the location and growth rate. So it's really hard to pinpoint what this could look like. But rev share in general will generate more revenue in the long term, but it's just obviously a little bit up in the air based on like EV utilization in the area.
I think what they're asking too, does it go on perpetuity as long as the station is there?
Yeah, so the agreement typically is about 10 years. So if someone comes in and installs the chargers for you, it's going to be around a 10-year commitment. And then they'll operate it, they'll maintain it. There's nothing to do on your end. You can also sell the property, and if anything, the EV chargers will be a value add to the next customer, next owner as well. So easily transferable of rights as well. And I think, yeah, Joseph said, yeah, if you can, yeah, what's the minimum number of chargers you need to make it work? We don't have a minimum. That's the best part. Typically, folks like installing 2 to 3 chargers in a location. This is for level 3, but we can go down to one level 3 charger in a location if we have to. We've done multifamily 10 level 2 chargers. It really depends on the like sort of the EV penetration in the area, the capacity, the amount of rebates, the rebates offered, and like what the developers was willing to actually install. And so it really depends. But we go all the way down from 1 to hundreds.
That's great. Michael Simpson.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Good topic. It's
Yeah.
fresh,
Thank
new, really
you.
relevant too, I think. As brokers, what should we kind of keep an eye out for? It seems like just off the top of my head, like everything would be good, but obviously
Yeah.
you're looking for the amount of cars and, if it's a good spot, you don't want others right next to it. They're competing, I don't know. I'm just trying to, what,
No, that's even better. Like you know how like sometimes you grow to an area and it's just all like jewelers and people just go there for jewelry. We've seen that when you have a lot of charges in a specific area, it actually increases the utilization of all the charges because people end up going there. So we're really, really open. And I think the onus is on us. If you send us a property, we do analysis and say it doesn't make sense to put EV charging here, that's perfectly fine. It's a scalable tech platform, so it takes no time for us. So all we need is addresses, and we can provide you like pretty quickly of like, if you give us 10, 5 makes sense, 4, let's go check with utilities to see if it actually makes sense. And post that, we can get you a contract in a week.
well, then
Yeah.
why wouldn't you guys are probably doing that on your own, right? Why would you
Yeah,
need
I mean,
us?
yeah. So I think what's right now, I mean, it's just 4 of us, right? We're a startup. We've got these 600 properties organically by ourselves, like doing the exact same things. We've realized in general, this pitch seems a little too good to be true. We're paying you to install EV chargers. And what we realized is that we need folks on the ground that have this trust with these commercial owners that can really pitch our product to them. And they can just make sure that we're not trying to like, this is like completely no obligation. We'll do a screening. If you're interested, we can get someone on the ground doing a site visit to figure out the installation costs, and you can get a contract and installation done in the next couple of weeks. And so I think this is my experience as well, working in short-term rentals and commercial real estate. You do need folks that have the trust and are on the ground that can actually talk to these commercial owners, and surface our offering to them. We are doing that as well. Like we're talking, our time is more spent on like long-term partnerships, like folks who have portfolios, of 60 properties, 80 properties. But I think like what's missing for us is just having folks on the ground that can help us sort of enable this.
Nice, thank you.
Yeah, I think everyone just needs to go deeper, and we could probably do another one to help kind of the pitch, the introduction, but a lot of us have the relationships already or advise on portfolios, and it's just introducing it to them, right? A credible source. And a lot of us, we always recognize, especially the industrial, when it was the billboards or the wireless and everything, because
Yeah.
this is just the next thing. And also
Exactly.
like solar panels. How many times did all of us get bombarded? Put solar on your house, put solar on your building, put solar. But no one did it until you find the right person or contact, that kind of vetted and understood to open up to the clients, right? Because that's a kind of the perfect example. Solar
Exactly.
sometimes made sense, they paid for it, but no one did it because they got bombarded and they just stopped,
Yeah.
right? Because it was just overwhelming that everyone started reaching out.
And we would never go to the owner behind your back, right? Like what we would do basically, if you give us an address, we would provide you with a couple of scenarios and like what they could expect. And then post that. I mean, we'll also send you the referral agreement to make sure that you get a slice of the pie. And then beyond that, I mean, we want to interface through you and the owner, and only when you think it's comfortable, we can go to the owner ourselves. We never want to like disrupt the process.
So Michael, as you train around the country, this is a pitch, right? Because you do need door openers. You do need ways to engage clients. And this is perfect. Would you like to increase your revenue?
Yeah, this is great. It's a great topic. I love this out of the
No, thank
box.
you.
And this is,
some,
I mean, just to underline that point, also James, because yeah, when we're talking about solar, very often that solar pitch is being framed as, oh, you can save on your electricity bill, or you can earn these credits, or somebody else will pay for it. But what we realize with the topic of EV charging, and also later on battery energy storage systems, some of these other load use cases that we have, they're all revenue generating, right? And that's kind of the nice that's a really good pitch for the owner, because it's really about, okay, how can you increase your top line rather than how can you save a couple of dollars here and there. So that conversation becomes then much more interesting also for the individual owners.
I see
and
Keith over there pulling up a cold list off CoStar. He's just going to send you a list right off CoStar.
amazing. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. We sent folks co-star emails as well. It's just better coming from a warm connection for
warm
sure.
connection. That's the key. I get it. That makes sense.
Yeah. And I don't want to muddy the waters, but we've actually experimented with a new business model as well. If you give us a property that we know is going to do well, we'll make an offer to them immediately. We'll say, here, give us exclusive rights to sell EV chargers on your property. We'll pay you X $100 a month. Then we take this property, package it up with a few others, and sell it at bulk to get a better deal for the owners to the developers as well. So that's something we're experimenting with as well over time. So there is a world in which if you send us an address and it's doing well, we can send you a contract and the owner can start getting paid within a week while we actually ship it around.
And from start to finish, how fast could they put in a charger that you've seen?
So there's a difference. So there's getting paid. We can pay them instantly. Two is like the actual contracting or like they agree on they're going to actually install infrastructure. That can happen in a week or two. The installation is the hard part, right? That one can vary from a couple of weeks to a couple of months. It really depends on the property itself. But the owner's not going to have to worry about this. We're going to work with the developers and utilities to do this. The owner just has to let us know which parking spots make sense, give us like the green light that they're interested in doing this, and we'll take care of the rest.
Wow.
So I have
Make it
another.
pretty- Go ahead, Michael.
So like billboards and mineral rights and things like that, you can sell the property and keep those rights, right? Is this the same kind of thing, or would it, once you sold that property, the rights would have to go with the property?
For in terms of the EV charging or the rights that we have.
Revenue, the rights to the revenue that's
Oh,
being
right.
with the owner.
So typically they would transfer to the new owner. So the new owner would then be able to make use of the charges, but also then earn in the rev share or the lease rate. So it's typically not the arrangement that the original owner would hold on to the revenue stream.
Right.
Yeah, that it doesn't mean that it's not possible, but I think it's at least for now that is more common in the industry.
It's like, yeah, it's typically it's a selling point. So when you actually sell the asset, like this gets calculated into the cap rate. So the owner just makes money off the sale, but the revenue stream remains with the new owner.
I think this is the best in seeing how it gets structured for everyone looking at trying to increase their, cap rate a little, especially with interest rates to balance it out. This could be it, to help you when the banks try to finance a deal. You kind of show that you have an agreement here, depending on numbers of chargers, right? You maybe you increase a couple bips or a whole cap rate, hopefully, right? I don't know if that much power goes, but you never know, right? And using different techniques could, as a good broker, help you, right, to win the deal with some secret sauce.
Yeah, and maybe just add to that. So I think what we've been actually seeing is that very often a good time to have a discussion about adding EV chargers is at the time of a property sale or at the time of a transaction, because this is where you think about, okay, how can we increase the value? Like what else can we kind of add in? Are there any improvements that can be made? So we've been seeing kind of good traction kind of coming in at the time of the transaction being discussed. And also the same for new developments, right? Because it's typically, I would say it's easier to think about these additions at the time of a sale or at the time of the new development than at the kind of day-to-day going of a given property. So those can be very interesting entry points as well.
Does anyone have any more questions on this? And then I'll just leave it for kind of final words, other things, but I know that this is a really good hot topic. That's a growing industry. It's not going to get smaller. It's only going to get bigger. And there's ways that you can use this to engage and talk to your clients and prospect for new ones. Or if you're buying property, put it on your own. But I know with property management, a lot of other groups, portfolio management, this is perfect because they always want to learn how to increase a return and their investment for their portfolio. So this is really good stuff. There were some questions, I guess, in there from Florida or, certain locations.
We work in both Massachusetts and Florida across the US. I mean, we have developers who work nationwide. We have developers that work locally. And if we have a property, for example, in Tennessee that perhaps we haven't touched yet, we'll find a developer to do it.
Excellent. So again,
Great
Ash
info.
and Marcel, if you could put your information again, I
Yeah.
know there's going to be a lot of people reaching out to you to see how they can plug in with an agreement to start prospecting, bringing an address. I mean, it doesn't even get harder than that. I would say that anyone that's working on a listing or a deal should actually bring that to you. And can you imagine you're talking to your client buying a property saying, look, we tied up the deal. I can actually bring value to your property already. So if you sell it, there's at least
Exactly.
10,000, 20, 50,000, depending on how large the property is and what product type. So, there's a lot of good stuff, and I hope to keep continuing this, and also whatever you start expanding on this. But any, Ash and Marcel, final words to everyone here.
No, I mean, we're in the middle of this like revolution. We're going from 200,000 charges to 4 million. The power lies with the commercial owners. And so let's get them paid. Let's get all of us paid, right? Like, if you send us an email with, just sort of like, yeah, just send us an email. We'll send you a referral contract and post that, send us addresses, and we'll just start sending you opportunities your way. Super simple.
Any final
I
words?
just want to say thank
Go ahead,
you,
April.
Jim, for bringing this opportunity to us. And gentlemen, thank you for your willingness to share. We appreciate it.
No,
At least
thank
I
you.
do.
Thank you. We're all on the same team here. I love it. Let's do it.
Yes.
They just need help to really send it out, because us as agents, brokers, portfolio man, we have the relationships. It's just really understanding this deeper so you could just share with your clients. But everyone that's doing deals, especially commercial deals, I would just say run the numbers. What the heck? And
Yeah.
see what happens.
Let
right?
us-
There's no
let us do the
downside,
work.
yeah.
Let us do all the work. Let us have the burden of everything. We built out the tech tool for this. Just send us addresses, as many as you want. There's no downside.
You're going to get flooded of a bunch of addresses now.
we're
I know
excited.
from this group.
We're excited. We're excited. This is what we live and breathe. So let's do this. Thank you guys so much. Honestly, really appreciate it. Great questions. Thank you, Jim, for introducing us. This has been great.
Well, everyone, thank you.
Program, thank you.
Thank you again for
you.
joining us, on Top Agent Commercial Wednesdays. We're always trying to bring cutting edge stuff that you could learn, use, apply, right, to make more income. And I know with Ash and Marcel, we'll probably put an education program or some kind of teaser so people can get better and
Yeah.
push it even larger so more people can actually understand this cutting edge idea. And Michael, let's incorporate it into your cold calling course, because I know, this is a great way to call clients, especially in multifamily. Who doesn't want to make more money?
Yeah. No, I was messaging Katina as well. She said like, are we open to multifamily? And that works great for us. We have partners that can install and operate EV chargers in multifamily for free. I can tell you that right off the bat. Doesn't even matter where you guys are. We have partners that can do it.
There you go. So everyone start getting on the phone, start talking to your clients. And, I know Michael start putting the pitch together. But again, Ash, Marcel, thank you so much for joining us on Top
Thank you,
Agent
guys.
Commercial
Yeah, thank you.
Wednesday. We look forward to everyone joining us every week for more cutting edge knowledge, tips, tricks, and ways that we can help agents, brokers, portfolio managers, investment to really help them increase a return. So thank you again for joining us. Look forward to
you.
seeing you guys next week.
Likewise. Take care, everyone.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everyone.
Bye.